So in this tutorial, we're going to go over how to use Python without any type of downloads. Now it's a web-hosted version of Python, so we could use any browser that we prefer. I'm going to use Google as a Google product. So we can come up here and we can just type in Colab. Press enter and it's going to bring us here. So Google Colab is where we want to be. Press on this link. Now it'll prompt you to sign in here and we'll do that. Now, after signing in, it'll bring you to a screen like this. You guys probably won't have files here if you've never used Colab before, but considering I have for other videos, you could see some of them here. Now, I'm going to come down here and press New Notebook so we can open a new file. Now, here's the base landing page for a Colab notebook. Here you can see we have File, Edit, View, Insert, Runtime, Tools, Help, and we also have some options here on the sidebar. Now, the table of contents I don't really use too often. I will say, for the most part, I'll use Find and Replace, especially if I'm trying to rename variables. And I'll also use this a lot, the file connectivity, where you could upload your own files. That's also where you would upload, say, CSVs, XLSX files, etc. Now, something that is very useful is this right here. Now, this is your command box. For example, you could use any command you could do here, you could do within here. We'll reference back to this throughout the video, but as I said before, anything you want to do in any of these buttons can be done in here. Now, under the File tab here, we could see we have Locate and Drive, so we could see where our file is, rename, move to trash, etc. Now, this is basic, so I don't want to spend too much time here. But if you want to save a copy in GitHub, here's where you would do it. And also, if you wanted to say, write some code and then bring it to VS Code, you can either download it as a .py or a .ipynb. Especially if you have to submit it for like an assignment, this is very useful. And the next tab is Edit. Now, I also use this as I copy a lot of the code I write in videos into descriptions, so I could use Select All, and that'll allow me to select all the code in a single notebook. We could also use Find and Replace, as I showed here. Now, if you wrote a lot of code and you have a lot of plots, something like Clear All Outputs will also be pretty useful to you. I don't really use View too much, as I could just zoom in and out myself. I also don't use Insert too much, so I'll usually just add blocks of code manually through this plus code or plus text. Now, runtime is something I do use quite often. For example, if you're opening a script for the first time in a little while and you need to run a bunch of code, you could use run all. If you need to interrupt a big block that, for example, is taking too long to compute, you can interrupt it, restart it, etc. We could also do that through here, and I'll show you if you just type, you can see interrupt execution. Now, tools is something I also find quite useful. Now, we could go to our command palette, which once again is right here, and it opens it that way instead. We could also go to settings. And this allows us to change light, dark. I'll change to dark, for example. You can see some people prefer dark theme. Now we can come into editor, we can change font size, indentations, etc., show line numbers. Now this tab is also quite useful as consenting here allows code to be auto-generated. For example, if there's code you write quite often and you go to start typing it out again, Google will automatically start writing the code for you. You can just press enter to finish it off. Now the auto-generate I find is very useful as it's free and other software is not the same and you usually do have to pay. Colab Pro is where you can buy more computing power. Personally, I don't need it, but others may. Here's where you can connect your GitHub account, which is very, very useful, especially if you're trying to save files into there. Lastly, we'll cover miscellaneous, where we can click in all of these and we can just press save. And now you can see we have a corgi and a crab here. Now I won't be clicking into it as it does show my personal email, but this is how you could share notebooks similar to how you could share a Google document or something in that nature. Here we have our cat, and the last thing I'll show is the built-in Gemini feature here. Now, for example, I can ask it to create a plot, and I can press these buttons here to bring that code over. While this is very basic, you can ask it more complex questions similar to ChatGPT. While I do personally prefer ChatGPT, this is built in, so it's nice to use. So that'll be all for this introduction to Colab. I hope that was useful and save you some time on some downloads.